We couldn't do this podcast without mentioning your latest book, the Devil's Dictionary. And I want to ask you about this in terms of like how you go from, let's say, a nonfiction book like the one we were talking about to really a fiction book, which Devil's Dictionary being the follow-up to The Last Tango in cyberspace. I'm curious as to really kind of the goal of this approach, because this book is incredibly interesting. It's raising questions around how far we should take genetic engineering and CRISPR, and should we tinker with life itself and so on. And I'm curious why you present it in the method of like a sci-fi thriller, right? As opposed to another format.
So whenever the impossible becomes possible, you see people using flow and peak performance. You also see people harnessing disruptive technology, accelerating disruptive technology, right? So half of my books are on accelerating disruptive technology and how people use that tech to solve the impossible. And in sort of, I always say I'm a reporter, not a futurist. And I was reporting the book that became Future is Faster Than You Think. And my co-writer, Peter Diamandis, wanted to look into the future. Okay, let's tell people what it's going to be like when all these accelerating technologies start coming together in 2030 or 2040. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, that's not what I do. I don't, like, guys are futurists and gals are futurists. Like, that's a job. It's not my job. I don't know how to do that. But I'm trained as a storyteller. And so what I did is I put all those technologies together into a world, spun the world 20 years into the future, and then set a story there. And that was Last Tango. I wrote Last Tango while writing The Future is Faster because I was trying to like hold on to this world that I had to describe in a nonfiction book, and I couldn't. But I could put it into a fiction and set a story there, and it also allowed me to explore some of the other ideas. I can put together peak performance ideas with technology ideas with a bunch of other stuff that I'm interested in and explore it, in fiction in ways it's harder to do in nonfiction. I always say that like I could have written a nonfiction version of Devil's Dictionary, for example, that explores all the same. There's a bunch of environmental ideas in there and technological ideas, and it would have taken for example, the genetic engineering stuff, right? Like I'm asking really hard, complicated questions about genetic engineering in that book. And yet if there's 10 pages of genetic engineering in the book, maybe 7 total, that would be a lot, I would think. So like something about fiction allows you to like do things with metaphor and words and storytelling and reader emotions in a sense that allows you to like skip over, right? If I had to make the genetics argument out of facts that I make in the Devil's Dictionary, it's like 80 pages long and you're bored. One of the things I learned writing about nonfiction and science, nobody likes reading about genetics. Unless the book itself is about genetics, people fucking hate reading about genetics. I don't know why. Genetics and history bug people, unless the book is specifically history or genetics. Evolution is the other one. Those 3 subjects seem to really bother readers unless their book is on that particular topic. So fiction allows me to do stuff that I can't normally do.
And when presenting this future, it seems like you have a very optimistic view of the future. So things like climate change, mass extinction, a lot of challenges that we face, you believe we're going to figure these things out. These crises will be averted. So when you're presenting this future, it's like, whether it's entrepreneurs have figured it out or someone's figured it out, maybe it's through working even with Peter, but you believe we're going to get through it.
Well, I believe that we have the technology to solve those challenges. So I did create a world in Devil's Dictionary where climate change and species die-off had been solved. And the question really at the heart of that book is, what kind of changes in society, right? Whether it's technological, cultural, psychological, at an individual level, right, have to happen for us to solve those challenges. One of the things that we know out of peak performance literature, and most people just know out of common sense, if you can't imagine the future, you can't create it. Like the future, whatever it is that we imagine, that's got to be the first step towards creating it. So if we can't imagine a world where climate change isn't solved, species die-off isn't solved, we'll never get there. So I wanted to give us a target. Let's imagine the world, but I also wanted to be, again, I'm more of a journalist than a futurist, so I'm not really a utopian by nature. I wanted to create a world where there were real challenges, but they were the challenges that arose because downstream from solving these problems. And that was what I was sort of looking at, which was fun, super fun.